Civil rights attorney Ben Crump is known for his battles for justice for Trayvon Martin, George Floyd, and Breonna Taylor, just to name a few. Now he's fighting for the victims of the racist Buffalo grocery store attack. We remember this, where 10 black people were killed. Crump is also the focus of a new Netflix documentary. It's called Civil. It follows him for one pivotal year in 2020 when George Floyd's death changed the world. We're getting an exclusive look.
People seek me out because they want somebody they feel they can trust.
It's not just fighting racism and discrimination in these police shooting cases. It's fighting racism and discrimination wherever it rears its ugly head.
You gotta try to not just be a spectator on the sideline. Get into the arena and do something.
Get into the arena and do something. Ben Crump joins us now. Good morning to you, Mr. Crump. People say you get into the arena a lot. But let's start with Buffalo, because you're representing some of the families there. What does justice look like for them?
It looks like holding not only this individual who committed this awful act of hate accountable, but also holding those who curate the hate, those who are at the root of the hate, holding them accountable as accomplices. They may not have pulled the trigger that killed those 10 innocent people in that grocery store, but they certainly loaded the gun, Gayle.
Mm-hmm. Are there any new developments in that case?
Well, we have just found out that many of the families are going to the United States Senate on next Tuesday to provide testimony before a hearing on gun reform and the rise of white supremacy in America.
Last night, President Biden said he wants to ban assault weapons in high-capacity magazines. What do you think we need to do to stop these mass shootings?
Well, I think that's certainly a step in the right direction. I can't fathom, Nate, why a person needs an AR-15 gun.
Yeah.
But you also have to get to a lot of what we talk about in the documentary, teaching civility, talking about people being civil to one another, and choosing social justice over this lynch mob mentality, choosing tolerance and respect over this notion of white supremacy, choosing and advocating for humanity over inhumanity.
Let's talk about this Netflix documentary, because it's a big deal. It's going to open the American Black Film Festival in Miami in about a week. It's directed by the same individual who directed Becoming, the Michelle Obama documentary. It's called Civil, and it opens with a voicemail message from a relative of George Floyd, which begins your connection to that family. And in the introduction, we called it the year that changed America, changed the world. Looking back, do you think it changed the world?
I think in many ways it changed the world. It raised the consciousness level that we have an obligation to be civil to one another, to understand and respect the humanity in everyone. I think about, Tony, one of the most significant calls to actions in American history was 2020. You can't plan that. This brilliant young director, Nadia Hallgren, masterfully captured moments that I didn't even realize was happening. And I'm very grateful to Tara Sarandos and the whole Netflix family for saying, you know, we think it's important to highlight this type of work, this type of activism, fighting in the courtroom and out the courtroom for humanity in a civil manner.
Yeah, listen, I think the documentary is very well done. I think people get to see all different sides of you. We see your daughter, we see your wife, see how you became Ben Crump. And you say that you want to make it financially unsustainable for black people to be killed in this country. What do you mean by that? Because then it goes back to, well, there's Ben Crump showing up again. He's trying to make a profit. Can you explain what you're doing and why you do it?
Certainly, Gayle. You know, every morning I wake up and I pray that we get to close down the police brutality division in my law firm, because that would mean we wouldn't have to lose Trayvon. We wouldn't have to lose Breonna. We wouldn't have to lose George Floyd and Pamela Turner, Botham Jean, all these young people who had such a future ahead of them cut down because of senseless violence. And that's what I fight for. Police brutality and these cases make up less than 5% of what I do. But
I didn't realize that, Ben, because it seems whenever you're on TV, you're there because someone has been shot. Do you represent white people, by the way, too?
I represent many white people. In fact, Hunter and B.B. Arkansas was a young white boy shot by the police, and we represented his family.
But you go when you're called. I think we should make that point. You just don't show up. But you're trying to make it financially unsustainable.
So for those critics that say it's not passion, it's profit for him.
Yes.
Yeah.
What do you say?
I just say, you know, one thing we all have to understand is that America is a capitalistic society, and what we're fighting for is to say, see us as valuable, whether we're black, white, red, or brown.
Yeah.
And we don't want you to kill our children, too. And how do we stop it? I want to use everything I can. You know, Kenya Barris created Blackish, and now he's the executive producer of this. One thing we talked about when we were talking about this is trying to give value to black people and brown people so we can be looked at as equal, not only in theory, but in reality.
Yeah, I've heard you speak and you talk about how we move forward and not living in fear. Is that tough to do for you as an individual when you're receiving death threats? Because you talked about that as well in this film. Because it's one thing to brush off people saying that we don't like you. It's another thing for thousands of people saying we are going to kill you.
Yeah, and I think about what happened in Buffalo, Nate, and that we don't take the death threats lightly. We take them seriously. But I believe that God blessed me with this influence, and shame on me if I don't use this influence to try to do everything I can to help those who don't have a voice. At the end of the day, this is about trying to make a better world for all of our children. And if I can do that, then my living won't be in vain.
Even if it costs you your life?
Even if it costs your life, you have to say,
what did
I
your
won't
mentor
live in
tell you?
fear.
Yeah.
I won't live in fear.
Your mentor was Thurgood Marshall.
Yeah.
What did he tell you? And then we're going to say goodbye.
Yes, ma'am. Gayle, the first time I got to meet my personal hero, Justice Thurgood Marshall, at the Supreme Court with other young people, these historically black college students who were with me, he came over and he told us young aspiring lawyers, go into courtrooms and don't argue what is legal. He said, you go into courtrooms and you argue what is right. And that was so profound to me. I never forgot that, Gayle King. Argue what is right. And now more than ever, this documentary is about saying, let's do what is right. Love over hate, humanity over inhumanity.
Yep.
Well, it's very powerful. I think people get to see really different sides to you. And I thought, very well done. Congratulations, Ben Crump.
Appreciate you joining us.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gayle,
Nice
Nate,
to have you at the
Tony.
table.
Very much.
It's an honor.
How do you remember everybody's name, too? Whenever you're talking to people, you always say their name. Nicely done. The
Trial lawyer.
The Netflix documentary Civil comes out on Juneteenth, which is Sunday, June 19th.
And Tribeca on June 12th.
And Tribeca on June 12th. We'll be right back.